Hey everyone, and welcome back to Salesforce Mojo. I'm very excited to be back. I appreciate everyone being a little bit patient as I've taken a little bit more time to produce this video with just everything going on and life outside of me producing those videos. But today I'm very excited to create a video about native shipping. This is a feature that went out in beta a while ago and is now GA. So you can find it in your instances, but native shipping is really cool because it provides a little more configuration in your storefronts. So in today's video, we'll go through a little bit of the basics. We'll go through what it is. We'll go through some of the options we have available, some of the objects, and then we'll dive headlong into actually setting this up inside of our Salesforce Mojo instance. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. So I first thought I'd start with a quick overview of the shipping calculation types. Now, we've talked a couple of times about shipping in the past here, and especially recently with extensions. We have the custom shipping option still. This is still a valid option. You can either use the API or AppExchange package in order to calculate shipping. In most cases, complex cases, I should say, this is probably still going to be the priority here because this will allow you to do really whatever you need to when it comes to shipping. However, there are some businesses, companies, and use cases that allow us to have a more fixed or flat shipping rate, which is one of the reasons why Salesforce came out with native shipping. And native shipping allows you to create a flat shipping cost that has a kind of a limited set of parameters that allow you to say, for an order of this size, you can have these options. And we'll go into that in a little bit more detail in a second. But now we kind of have the native option here if you kind of have a straightforward use case, and then we still have our custom option here through extensions to be able to calculate shipping as we need to. Now let's do a quick overview of some of the features we can use with this native shipping. The first one is we can do rates by country. So if you have a use case where maybe you have United States or Mexico or somewhere in Europe, and you have different countries and you need to be able to provide shipping rates and types by country. This is something you can do with native shipping. The second one is you can have multiple rates by country, so it's not just one, but you can have multiple. You can have that broken down by there. And then you can have conditional rates saying, okay, now we have US country, we have 3 options in the country, and the rates are going to be X amount of dollars based on if the order is over $500 or less than $500 as an example. But we'll get a little bit further into that in a moment. But this gives you a little bit of flexibility with native shipping. So it's not just flat, here's one amount, but a little bit of conditional with the flat. You just can't go as far as being able to calculate weight or size or anything else like that from the order to calculate shipping. So here's a good example of what I mean when I say conditional rules. You can see that we have 3 different rates right now. We have Speedy Shipper, Standard, and Next Day. The Speedy Shipper is always there. It's a flat, I should say it's a non-conditional rate right here, and it's always $30. And then we have 2 different options down here. We have Standard and Next Day, and those are based on how much the person is spending. So if the order is between 0 and $300 US in this case, they can see the option of Standard. And if it's above $300, then it's $15 and they'll see Next Day. So that's how you can use these conditional options here to be able to show the right options per order. Now we'll go into this in a little more detail as we're configuring inside of Salesforce, but I wanted to kind of give an overview of what this would look like. Now here's the real trick here. We have several new objects that come with this feature here. So let's go through this real quick and then I'll pull up an actual ERD here to talk through it in a moment. We have 4 new objects we should care about here. We have the shipping configuration set, shipping rate group, the shipping rate area, and the standard shipping rate. So what does this actually mean? Well, the first one, the shipping configuration set, we have shipping profile here at the top. We'll have 1 record per storefront. We have the shipping rate group, which is attached to the shipping profile. And then we get down to the shipping area, and this is really when it starts to segment by country. So in this case, we have a shipping rate area called United States, and you can actually name it United States or whatever you'd want outside of that. And then you have the individual rates or options the person can see that are then rolled up to the rate, rolled up to the group, rolled up to the set. So really when it comes down to where are the multiple records, we have shipping area right here. And this area, you'll have multiple areas if you're doing multiple countries. And then you'd have the number of rates you could have inside of the area. Now, I haven't run into any limitations on the number of rates yet. I haven't been able to find any limitations in the documentation, but you will want to make sure that the number you have makes sense, right? If you have 15, that's probably too many rates. So typically 3 to 5 is a good number depending on your use cases here. So let's actually go into the ERD here, and we'll dig a little bit further into this. So here we are back in Lucidchart. This is the same ERD that I put out before. So if you've been a user of this, you can go to this new tab called Shipping, and it will have these new objects here and how they interconnect with each other. And I've actually taken a look at who's been viewing this, and it looks like it's being used pretty widely. So let me know if you see any gaps in this and want me to add more tabs. I'll absolutely be willing to do that. But if you look at this from a shipping standpoint, we have the configuration set that we talked about. We have the rate group, the rate area, and the shipping rate. And I've tried to list out all of the fields that are relevant on here, borrowing all the last modified and created date, and how they connect to each other, and a little bit about what they are. And then on top of that, I've also put a link in here directly to the documentation. So if you click this right here, you can actually dive into the docs, which will take you to the object, and you can say this is shipping configuration for a set of products in a store, and it will give you all the supported calls and fields, which is where I've gotten this information from. So that's a little handy link right here. And then you can see that it uses countries and regions down here. And then you can actually see the shipping rate and the different factors that are available down here at the bottom. Okay, you see we're logged in here to Salesforce Mojo. We're in our Tiny Homes LWR store. And in the past, I've already enabled this for the extensions capability. So we won't need to do that, but you can go into the administration section, and we'll start our journey by going to the shipping calculation. And out of the gate, you'll see that there's a new section up here called the Salesforce Shipping Service, which is that native shipping that we're talking about. And if you scroll down, you can see that we have our custom provider still, and we have the cart and checkout calculator. So this gives you a good example here that you can still use this custom option. That's not going away with the native shipping that's coming out here. But I did want to take a moment and just pause and say, if you have a custom provider enabled on here, it is always going to take precedence over the standard shipping. So if you're trying to figure this out and do it and kind of follow along here, but you have one configured or selected down here, the native shipping service up here will never apply. So if you want to use the native shipping service, make sure this says no shipping selected, and it will default back to the shipping service that we're about to configure. So I've seen people miss that in the past, so I just want to make sure that that's extremely clear here. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to map our zones, and we're going to click New Zones, and this gives us the ability to create zones. Now, if your use case is relatively straightforward, then your zones could be relatively straightforward. But you can see the description up here says that you can create a shipping zone with one or more countries that share shipping rates. So for instance, if I was doing Canada and the United States, the shipping services might overlap. So it might make sense for us to create a North America zone as maybe the name of that. In our use case, I'm just going to stick with a really simple one, which is just United States. And so therefore, I'm going to call this zone United States. But know that you can create one with more than one country if that's applicable for your use case. So we'll go ahead and click Save. And what this will do is it will create the zone for us. Now, while I go through this, I thought it would be helpful to also show the data behind this. So I'm actually going to open up Workbench, and we are going to go through and actually just take a look at these objects as we go through. So we'll go over into the SOCL query here, and we're actually going to start with our shipping configuration set. And if we go into that, pull that up here, and you can see that we have this shipping profile with the ID that has been generated here, and if it's the default right now, and the target record ID, which you'll notice is exactly what's in this object right here. And this target reference ID, and actually I've got this mapped to the wrong one right here, is actually to the web store. So this ID right here is actually our web store. If I click on this and we were to go to the actual record here, you can see that this is the Tiny Homes LWR store. So that's how it maps to begin with. Now the next object we should have in here already is the shipping rate group and shipping rate area. So let's go up here, let's go take a look at what that looks like. Go to our group first. And we can see now that we have a shipping rate group. And this shipping rate group is actually tied to that shipping profile we just talked about here. So if we were to click on this record right here, we'll see that it ties back to the shipping rate profile, which also ties back to that the web store we just looked at. And then from there, we go to area, and this is where we can start to get to kind of the one-to-many relationship instead of just kind of these single records here. And we have right now just one zone called the United States. And the United States here is mapped to a specific country. You can see that it uses the country code. So now let's say that we wanted to go in and create a secondary zone. So let's go in here and do this and see what happens if we maybe create one for Canada. Let's see if we can find that here. Let's say in our use case that we had shipping rates that are specific to countries. So if we were to save this, we'd have two different zones now. And if we go back over here and refresh this query, we should see two records that pop in. And we do. One's Canada and one is the United States. So you can see that this name here is not necessarily country, but you can name it the country, or you can create something that's a little bit more generic than that if you have multiple countries inside of this. So now that we have that, we'll want to go over into standard shipping rate, and we'll go ahead and query this, and we should get no records because we have not done that yet. So if we go back over into our providers here, then we will be able to see that we can create a new rate within each of these zones. So let's open up the United States, create a new rate right here. Let's call this ground shipping. And let's say ground shipping is $10. And this is where the conditions come in that I mentioned before. You can either say this is always going to be available, there's no conditions, or you can say that there's conditions on this based on the order's value, meaning price. And right now it's only minimum and maximum. So let's say for our use case, ground should always be there. So we're just going to do no conditions. We always want ground to be an option. We're going to save that. The second one, however, let's do super fast delivery, and this is only going to be available if you have a high priority or high value order. So we're going to put a condition on this that says the minimum order value needs to be greater than $500 and no upper limit in this case. If we have an order that comes in with at least $500, then this one will apply. Otherwise, we'll just see right now just the ground shipping. So let's go back over into Workbench. Let's click Query here, and you can see that we have two different records. And one of them is that ground shipping, and there are no condition factors for here. And the second one is a super fast delivery we just created. This one has the order price factor, which is the condition factor of a minimum count of $500. And you can see that it ties back to that specific shipping zone. Now, if we were to go and create a ground shipping for Canada, now we would be able to see another ground shipping potentially, but it applied to the shipping zone ID. I do want to note on this name, however, that these names are the names that show up in checkout. So it's really important to make sure that these are customer facing and visible, and you don't name it something, internal facing, because that will be a little confusing to your customers. So now that we have this all configured here, we've done the setup we need. We don't need to do anything down here because this takes precedence if there are no providers down here. So we should be able to go into our storefront now and be able to see this in checkout. All right, so here we are logged into our storefront, and you can see that right now we have a cart that's worth $309, $299 from the actual item, and then we have some taxes calculated on here. So if we go to checkout, we should see our different delivery options. And we will note that we are using the out-of-the-box components. You can see that we are showing the ground shipping, which is great, and it's $10, and it looks like it has automatically applied that for us, which is exactly what we expected to happen here. And if I go into the kind of back end here of checkout, you can see that we have standard shipping method on here, so nothing special required to make this work. But if we go back over here, let's say we go back into the cart and we buy 2 of these, our total value should be over $500 at that point. And so we now should be able to see 2 delivery options. So let's go into checkout and see if this works. And you can see that we have 2 delivery options now. We have our super fast delivery here, which is $30. And if we click that, that should update the $30 over here on the right hand side. So that is kind of a wrap up here on the delivery options. You can see how fast and quick it was to actually initially enable this and begin using it, and how flexible it can kind of be when you have a situation where you can use the flat shipping options here with a little bit of configuration. Thanks for watching, and hopefully this was informative, and let me know if you have any questions in the comments.